Here's how you know NFL football is only 49 days away. Chris Canty is here.
Welcome back, man.
Welcome back. Got a little Harden thing happening on your face.
Got a little something going on in your game.
It's good. I like it.
I appreciate it.
Also, did you just finish up your football camp?
Yeah, just finished up the Camp of Champions. I host it every year in Manhattan. It's a free camp. This year we had over 600 kids, so it was dope.
Congratulations, man.
Yeah,
Chris Canty, love the kids, man.
Love the kids, man. Love the kids and love ball.
Good stuff. All right, well, we're happy to have you here. We love when you're on. Let's talk some football.
That was good, Jimmy. You didn't...
She didn't make it awkward. There you go.
On the outside, I didn't, but on the inside, it was awkward.
I knew it was Canty because the lights went out when the...
Baker Mayfield's never been one to shy away from the limelight. He loves it. It loves him. From winning the Heisman to being selected first overall by the Browns, and with more hype surrounding his team than ever before, he's once again not shying away from who he is, saying, quote, "I'm going to be myself and believe in that, and if you don't like it, that's okay." Canty, what do you expect?
Cal heard. That's what he said.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what he said.
He got smoke for everybody.
Something for him.
What are we expecting from Baker Mayfield as he gets ready for year 2?
Well, I think we can expect a similar season from Baker Mayfield that we've seen from some of his contemporaries, that being Jared Goff and Carson Wentz. Both of those guys in year 2, double-digit wins for their team, over 60% completion percentage, and, of course, a 3-to-1 touchdown-interception ratio or better. So I think when you look at the skill positions that the Cleveland Browns have, I mean, Jarvis Landry, Odell Beckham Jr., Antonio Callaway, Nick Chubb, David Njoku. I mean, I think it's set for him to have that type of campaign. The only thing that would give me a little bit of trepidation from a personnel standpoint is that offensive line. I like their guard, center guard trio with Joel Bitonio, J.C. Treader, and Austin Corbett. The tackles, though, you know, Hubbard and Greg Robinson, they leave a little something to be desired. But you do have some continuity with the offensive system that he's going to be running. They kept Freddie Kitchens in-house. They elevated him from offensive coordinator to the head coach. So I think that that will benefit Baker. Now, that cuts both ways because defensive coordinators got a year of tape of seeing Baker Mayfield in that same system, so they'll do some things to try to take some of his strengths away. But by and large, I like what Baker Mayfield brings to the table. I like what he does, not only from a production standpoint, but from an intangible standpoint for that team. We'll have to see how all those strong personalities work together. But I think the stage is set for him to have a big season.
Go ahead, Steve.
Talking about a big season, I have another question for you, because I think that from the Cleveland Browns, people will be talking about the Cleveland Browns, but I believe that the part of the team that will be misrepresented is the defense. And you like what they got up front. You like Olivia Vernon coming over, pairing him up with Myles Garrett. What potentially can we see in Myles' 3rd year when you add another premier rusher on the outside? And if Baker does these things you're talking about, interceptions, that the offense is going to be highly ranked, what does that do for defensive players? Because I believe he's an up-and-coming star and might get 20 sacks this season.
Well, here's the thing. People always say a tight end is a quarterback's best friend, or a running back is a quarterback's best friend, and take some pressure off of him. To me, I think a really good defense is a quarterback's best friend because they can create better field positions, steal extra possessions, set your offense up to be able to have success. So what they've done defensively, trading for OV and then signing Sheldon Richardson, I think that's going to be huge. I mean, that's going to take a lot of pressure off of Myles Garrett. I mean, you're talking about 2 or 3 guys that can command a double team. And
front four, I mean, because you like Ogunjobi as well.
I love Ogunjobi.
Yes.
Love Ogunjobi.
So Garrett, Ogunjobi, Richardson, Olivier Vernon, that's in the discussion for most pressing front four in the entire league.
Absolutely. And so when you don't have to blitz in order to be able to apply pressure, it gives your defensive coordinator a lot of flexibility. And you know Steve Wilks knows how to be creative with front fours. We saw him do it down there in Carolina. But I love what the Cleveland Browns did on the back end of their defense, being able to add Greedy Williams to what they got in Denzel Ward and Demarius Randall. You know how front and coverage works together. I mean, that could be a really stingy defense.
Yeah, they got a little track team back there.
Last year they were awful in total yards, but one thing that they did do is take the football away. I look for them to continue to have that trait as a defensive unit.
So let's put it all together. We all like their defense. Their running game was good last year, should be better this year with Kareem Hunt coming in fresh after his 8-game suspension. They have, I believe, the most talented receiver in the league in Beckham. Jarvis Landry was a typical Jarvis Landry, solid if not spectacular season last year. Their tight end has enormous potential if unrealized. The offensive line, questions about the tackles notwithstanding, allowed 3 sacks in the final 6 games of last season. And Baker played like a top 8 quarterback the final half of last year. So what should that mean? That should mean the Browns are a playoff team, the favorites in their division. And I'll take it further back than just Goff and Wentz. In year 2, Russell Wilson won the Super Bowl. In year 2, Colin Kaepernick went to the Super Bowl. In year 2, Patrick Mahomes went to the AFC Championship game, won league MVP. Like, in today's NFL, when you have this great quarterback on a cheap contract with a lot of talent, that's when your championship window springs open. To me, that's not overstating or overhyping the Browns to say 10, 11 wins, win the division, win a playoff game should be their expectations going into this season.
But Cece, right now we saw a little bit of what Baker could do. We have a piece of paper with a bunch of names on them, and these are great names, and we just all went through it. How do you make sure a guy like Baker Mayfield, who's a little bit brash, he's a little bit out there, he's very confident in himself, and you always say, like, the game is bigger than who you are, especially when you're first coming up. How does a guy like that lead a piece of paper with all these big names on it to be called a playoff-bound team?
Well, this is the thing with Baker, and speaking with him and Freddie Kitchens last year, they have a tremendous rapport together. And I think Freddie and the rest of that staff there are going to let him know, you got a good defense. You got a good kicking game. You got a home field advantage. So they'll prioritize things that every game Baker doesn't have to save Cleveland. He's not drafted to save Cleveland every single play because of the talent around him. Baker took advantage of the talent around him at Oklahoma. Man, he spread the ball around. Now, the offensive line, it's important that he gets as comfortable in the pocket as he did in year number 1. You bring up a great point about the offensive line. They trade away right guard Kevin Zeitler. Now, does he hurt? That overall Pro Football Focus has them ranked 20th as far as offensive line entering. That's the unit that you have to watch for. Baker Mayfield, if you ask me, Chris, if you can have any personality as a quarterback, I want the guy to be a football player. I don't want him to be some special guy, some guy that thinks he's better than the rest of the organization. I want him to come to work just like the rest of us, talk trash, play jokes, and be just like the rest of the team. Because in that locker room, typically there's 50 guys. The quarterback and the kicker are the two odd personalities in the locker room. So I don't mind Baker Mayfield being the type of brash, young quarterback that's talented. I don't mind that because I know the type of locker room this goes around the NFL. Everyone can't be Tom Brady. Everyone can't say all the right things, do all the right things. Cal Hurd, I know Colin, that's what he's on. Hey, man, I want my guy. I want my guy.
He wants him to be Russell Wilson. Yeah. Loves Russell Wilson.
Well, how much of Russell is real?
Right. Exactly. Well, in Russell, we might see a slightly different Russell as we've seen this
offseason.
Since Sierra, it is a different Russell.
But he awful spicy.
Got a little more bass in his voice.
Oh, his voice changed, too.
A little more bass in his voice. But the one point that you bring up about Baker Mayfield, having those intangibles and being able to establish that chemistry, that rapport with his teammates, that's important. Because this is an organization that's been devoid of leadership, by and large, the better part of this millennium. I mean, you're talking about having one double-digit win season since 2000, and in that same span, you got 14 double-digit losing seasons. Good. So, I mean, that's a problem. And you need somebody to be able to turn that around. I know people throw the word culture around as a catch-all, but I think it's applicable in this situation just because you do need somebody to become the catalyst, the agent for change in Cleveland. And I feel like Baker Mayfield has already made strides in order to do that. You look at these comments about the Giants fans and how they treated Odell Beckham Jr. on the way out the door. That comment wasn't for Giants fans.
It was
the comment
for Odell.
wasn't for Browns fans. That was for Odell Beckham Jr.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Great point.
And that's Baker Mayfield letting Odell let him know, you're one of my guys. I got your back. And you're going to be treated well here. So I think that that's something that could be beneficial for this team coming into this season. Because, again, a lot of strong personalities in that locker room and in the building. It's going to have to work. And I think that Baker Mayfield has the right demeanor in order to make it do that.
It is good to have you back. Feels good. Feels like football's right around the corner. We'll take a break. Canty, we'll see you a bit later on. Much more First Things First right after this.
Canty ain't just walk around big for no reason.
Nah.
He well read.